Today our story brings us to Ross Point Beach in Sligo. It is 8 kilometres from Sligo town. It has 3 beaches, but the most popular one, even though the smallest one, is the closest one to the town and is only 400 metres long. The village of Ross Point is in a bay and is ideal for windsurfing and other water sports. On the morning of the 16th of June 2009, a man was out early on the beach with his son, who was training for a triathlon. As he was walking along the beach, he came upon a body of a man. What he thought to be a seal at first, as he came closer, he soon realised that it was a human body. It was a shock to him to discover a body on Ross Point Beach. It's a very quiet little village, and you wouldn't have incidents like this happen too often. On the morning the Gardaí got the call for this case, Sergeant Terry McMahon was on duty. When they arrived, the body was face down, and it was a gentleman wearing a navy t-shirt with his swimming trunks on under his underwear. They obviously didn't recognise him, and they had no reports of anyone missing. There was no sign of identification on him, and they covered the body immediately to protect it. The Gardaí contacted the coroner, and they received permission to remove the body to Sligo Hospital for a post-mortem. On examining the body, they acknowledged the man was in a state of undress, and there was no sign of drowning as there was no salt water in the mouth or lungs. The Gardaí in the meantime made a search of Ross Point in the hope of finding clothes or maybe a car parked nearby that may help in identifying the man. They did find a stack of clothes perched on some rocks. They were nicely folded as if someone was coming back to them. They were hoping to find a wallet, driver's licence, bank card, or something to identify who they belonged to. But again, this was a dead end. On closer inspection, they discovered that all the labels of the clothes were cut off, and it was the same for the clothes that the man was wearing when he was found. At this stage, the Gardaí were feeling that this was all getting a little weird. They had no way of identifying this gentleman, and it looked like this was intentional. Whoever it was did not want to be found. The items found on the beach consisted of a pair of black shoes, woolen socks, navy trousers, black leather jacket, a packet of tissues, €146.33, plasters, 5 aspirin tablets, a quartz watch, and a small packet of hotel care soap. The Gardaí canvassed locally at first, and this gave them nothing, and so they widened their scope through media and the Garda press office. The Gardaí then tried to trace the movements of the gentleman, and CCTV would play a big part in doing this. It was established that he boarded a bus in Derry in Northern Ireland on the 12th of June 2009. He arrived at the bus station in Sligo and got a taxi to a hotel where he booked in under the name Peter Bergmann and gave an address in Austria. When the Gardaí searched for this address, it was established that the area of the address existed, but the actual address didn't, so it was a dead end straight away. Then the Gardaí discovered there was a chain of events over 3 days by Peter. Every time he left the hotel, he had a purple plastic carrier bag with him, what appeared to be full of clothing. He walked around Sligo and out of sight of CCTV. He disposed of whatever was in the bag. When he arrived back at the hotel, he arrived back empty-handed. The Gardaí checked charity shops, refuse collections, and various searches around Sligo were done, but nothing was recovered. Peter was systematically disposing of all his personal property and determined they wouldn't be found. At this stage, Gardaí had kicked the investigation into high gear, and it was discovered that Peter had entered a post office in Sligo town and bought 8 82-cent stamps, but there were no stamps found in his belongings or on his person. So the Gardaí believed he had written letters to one person or up to 8 people. These people have never come forward. The results of the post-mortem came in, and it gave Gardaí a picture of how Peter had died. He had evidence of heart disease, and it was very bad, and this is what caused him to have a heart attack and die. They also found evidence of prostate cancer, and it was clear that Peter was terminally ill. The cancer was in his bones, and this would have caused Peter pain. It was in his lungs, which would have made him breathless, and there was clear evidence that he had lost weight. With all these symptoms, Peter was on no medication. His toxicology report came back clear. On Sunday, the 14th of June, Peter got a taxi to Ross Point, and the taxi driver showed him where the beach was. On the 15th of June, the next day, Peter checks out of the hotel with a black shoulder bag, a black bag in his hand, and another purple plastic bag, and goes to the bus station in Sligo town. Somewhere along the way he gets rid of the large black bag, as when he arrives at the bus station it is gone. He sits down and takes out a white sheet of paper, which he takes out a couple of times to look at, and then he tears it up and throws it away. Again it is unknown what was written on this paper. He then returned to the beach, and from several witnesses the Gardaí found out that he spent from roughly 3 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. walking up and down the beach. That is a long time, and you'd wonder what was going through his head. The Gardaí feel that the efforts Peter put into not being identified, that he had intended to enter the water, be carried out to sea, and never be found. But whether you look at it as divine intervention from the man above, he would not get to do this, and so we are left with the mystery of who Peter really was. The Gardaí believe that Peter Bergmann was not his real name. To go to all that trouble to not be identified, he was hardly going to give his real name. DNA was extracted from Peter by Forensic Science Ireland, and it was put on Interpol's database, along with a description and photograph of Peter, with no results to this day. Peter stayed in the mortuary from the 16th of June until September. He was then buried in Sligo Cemetery. The priest, the undertaker, and a few of the Gardaí that were dealing with the case attended the funeral. A detective would say it was kind of a lonely, eerie feeling in the sense that someone was going into the ground, they were getting a Christian burial, but there was no one there belonging to him, no family, no friends. Just because Peter is buried, it does not mean the case is closed. There is a professional and moral responsibility to continue to find Peter's family and bring closure. The case has got a lot of publicity, and they are currently dealing with the missing person in Croatia, who is believed to have lived in Germany, and they are in the process of resolving whether it's Peter or not through DNA. I will let you know the outcome. The Gardaí asked themselves why. What was the need to make sure that nobody nowhere could identify you? I guess that's the $1 million question that we will most likely never find the answer to.